All right, Buck. Buck and the Parson here, and we're at the end of our trip. Well, we got a big day of travel tomorrow, but we wanted to just kind of hit the highlights of our trip, and we want to thank you if you've tuned in to any of the 6 episodes. This is going to be the 7th episode of this trip, and of course, you know that we came to Monticello, Florida, to see a pig farm, the Glendower Farm, an 8th generation farm that of late has been a pig farm for the last 10 years. And Heinz Boyd is the farmer, PhD in animal science from University of Florida, and he's getting out of the pig business at the age of 82. And so we enjoyed seeing his herd, and then we ended up the last 2 days. We've been here at White Oak Pastures, and it has been quite the trip. Buck, what have been the highlights for you?
Oh my goodness gracious. I think my number one highlight, many of you don't know who Will Harris is.
Yeah.
The Parson and I have been following Will Harris for some time after reading his book, A Bold Return to Giving a Damn,
Yeah.
where he turns over the way he does agriculture from an industrial commercial perspective to a way that is way kinder to the earth, to the soil. He calls himself a grass farmer, and because grass farming makes sure that the soil gets built up. He's got some fields he showed us that they went from 0.5% of organic matter to 5%, and then it's an astronomical thing to do. But we're sitting having breakfast this morning in the restaurant here at White Oak, and in walks Will Harris. We didn't think we'd be able to actually shake his hand, but we did. And everybody here, including Will and all of the staff here, have been extremely cordial and warm and welcoming. And push came to shove, and 2 visitors, us, got ourselves on a trailer with a workshop talking about what's going on here, and we got to see the entire 3,500 acre operation of 10 different species of animals that they process right here. And I'll tell you, we've eaten well since we've been here, and except for potatoes, we haven't eaten anything that hasn't been raised right here on this property.
That's true.
Yeah.
And we even had that experience in Monticello, at the bed and breakfast, and we ate local at a local pizzeria that night. And I remember Kelly, who was our server, she said the eggs are from my chickens, and the sausage came right here from
right
Johnson,
down the street.
Meat processing plant. And so eating local was pretty cool. Even before we got here, the Crescent City Grill was proclaiming eat local, and so that's part of what we believe in, what we're going to be preaching. But related to highlights, I want to back up just a little bit to Monticello, and just to reiterate what a joy it was to know we were going to meet a hog farmer who on a Sunday, and he couldn't meet till after 11. Well, we both knew that was probably church, right? And that made us both happy since we met in seminary, right? And we didn't feel too terribly bad about seeing hogs on a Sunday, but a little bit, maybe a little bit. But he called us about 10 o'clock and said he'd already been to church. And I looked at Buck and I said, he's got to be a United Methodist. I mean, he's got a PhD and he went to early church.
He went to that 8:30 service.
He's got to be a United Methodist. So I said, I'm not going to ask him if he's a United Methodist, but I'm going to ask Pat, because Pat, who owned the Denham Inn, she went to church with Heinz. He told us that. So I said, I'm going to ask Pat what church she goes to. So as soon as we met Pat and had a little small talk, I just went ahead and popped the question. I said, I'm a little embarrassed to ask you, but Heinz told us that y'all saw each other in church this morning, so what church do you go to? And she said, well, we're Methodist. I said, are you Methodist or United Methodist? She said, we're United Methodist. But then she talked about the disaffiliation their church had gone through, and basically she and Heinz and and several people that we met, they had been part of the group that had to find a new home as United Methodist, and the Presbyterians had opened their doors to them. So just kind of having that camaraderie, if you will, of being a part of the same denomination, having gone through some of the same struggles, whether you're in Florida or Texas or wherever, we understood. And it was just really a joy to be with folk who were so happy to have a church that was worshiping 40 already on an average, and they didn't have but like 50 members right now, but they're growing, and 40% of their budget goes to mission. They were just so proud of the inclusive nature of the church, and that was a highlight for me.
That was a great thing.
Yep.
And the hospitality we've received along the way has just been
awesome.
Unbelievable.
Awesome. Well, we went on this trip to find pigs, right? So we've got to talk about our pig findings.
We found some.
We found a bunch. And on Glendower Farm, where Dr. Hines Boyd, is basically, he's getting rid of his herd, and you could tell it was painful to him because he had brought the Iberico pig over from Spain. And he said the Spanish farmers who sold the pigs to him said, "You'll be the first in the United States to have Iberico pigs." And he said, "Well, not really. They came here 500 years ago with De Soto when the Spanish came exploring the new land, and they brought pigs with them to feed the armies. And those were the Iberico pork pigs that we came here to see." And so just to find out that history from a PhD animal scientist who had more knowledge about pigs than anybody I've ever met. In fact, I kind of jokingly said that Buck and I learned more in 24 hours about pigs than we'd known in the first 65 years.
I'll never eat bacon the same way again.
Yeah, 65 years. And bacon is a different kind of taste to us now after having experienced pigs. But we saw Iberico pork pigs, we saw Berkshire crosses, we saw Michon crosses, which is a Chinese breed. We saw the Tamworth, which is a European breed. And we also saw some with Duroc. And so we saw many Iberican pigs, but Iberico pigs, but we also saw other species or breeds rather. And that was a great experience that we started at Monticello, and we continued when we got here to White Oak Pastures. So Buck, what you think about all of that pig hunting that we did?
Well, pigs are smarter than us sometimes. And both days we were there was this one particular boar, and this boar was scheduled to be shipped out to California. What day is today?
Today.
Tuesday. Oh, he shipped out to California today.
Yeah.
I'm sure Dr. Boyd is happy to have his ragged self gone, because this boar got out both days we were there, and
he was beautiful.
He was a gorgeous
my
boar.
gosh.
But dadgum if he wasn't a butthead, and we had to round him up both days we were there and get him back enclosed somewhere. And so right now he is somewhere between here and California, and as old Roy Clark used to say, thank God and Greyhound he's gone. But the pigs at Dr. Boyd's place were wonderful, and so much diversity, and it was great to see.
It really was. And he had all the records on them, and we had a good time looking at those records. But when we got here to White Oak, we found pigs on pasture that were really three different ages. You had the mama sows, and you had what looked like pigs that maybe weighed about 50 or 60 pounds, probably were born a couple of months ago. And then you had some little bitty pigs, and they were all in the same pig nursery and farrowing area where the mamas have the babies. And they just looked so energetic. I mean, they were running around. They'd run away from us, and then they'd run back to the fence, and they were so curious about who we were and what we were about. And so I really enjoyed seeing those pigs on the pasture and knowing that they were grazing, just like a cow would graze. And we got to witness that, and it was a different environment for the pigs, and it was all Iberico that we saw that day, and they were just beautiful animals. And so that's what we came to see, and we were not disappointed. So, 7 generations here at White Oak Farm. We saw today, Will Harris showed us a picture of his great-great-grandfather who came here, his great-grandfather, his grandfather, his father, and himself, and he's got 2 daughters carrying on the tradition, and they've got children who he knows will be part of this this wonderful White Oak Pastures company, basically, in town that has been transformed. So, to see a 7-generation farm, thinking, man, 7 generations out, and to see an 8-generation farm at Glendower, it just kind of rang true to what we talk about a lot in being a good ancestor and thinking long and thinking forward about what you're doing.
And if you'll read Will Harris's book, A Bold Return to Giving a Damn, and I really
like to say that.
I love saying that.
I got a T-shirt with it on it.
If you'll read that book, and I recommend you get the audio book, it's available through many sources, where Will reads his own book in his great, he calls it a foghorn leghorn accent, and he ain't far from wrong. But it's a wonderful southern drawl that he has. But he talks about a time when he sends off a 2-decker semi-load of his steers to a feedlot that going from here in Bluffton, Georgia, to somewhere in western Nebraska. And he knows that what the ones on the top are going to be doing to the ones on the bottom all the way there. They're not going to stop. They're not going to let them out. They're not going to feed them or water them. They're going straight through 1,300 miles.
Standing up all the way.
That's right. And Will, at that point in the book, says, I can't do this anymore. And at that juncture, Will decides he's going to make a change in the way that he does what he does here at White Oak. And it has made a huge difference. And in my mind, he's an American treasure. And and a man of great courage, because he's taken on to build that processing plant took a number of millions of dollars that he had to loan against. And anyway, it was so wonderful to meet him and just have him be just so much of a regular guy.
Yeah, and Will says, I'm a grass farmer, which is true, but he raises 10 species of animals. So he changed the way he saw animal husbandry, and he talked about how when he was at the University of Georgia, he started his major in animal husbandry, and they changed the title to animal science. And he said, there's a lot of difference in the stewardship of husbandry and just seeing all of this as a science or a money-making venture. And so he decided he was going to start doing things more humanely. And he also really had an epiphany related to the soil when he saw the natural forests and how rich they were and how full of life they were and how depleted some of the pastures were that he had his cows on. He said, I'm going to do things differently. No more chemicals. No more chemical fertilizer, no more chemical herbicides or anything like that. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to build this soil that will build the grasses, that the cattle and the pigs and all of these animals that he raises, the sheep, all of them are going to be on healthy pasture. And the thing though, Buck, that really impressed me the most is that his vision was not only what would benefit him, and he started selling his grass-fed beef primarily to Publix, which is a big grocery store out this way, and Whole Foods even at one time, and just a lot of major markets were buying it, to the point that he knew he needed a community involved. So he has 155 employees, most of them from the Bluffton area, all of them from the Bluffton area, and some from Bluffton itself. And it just is such a delightful atmosphere to see, African American people, Anglo folks all coming together to do what they do, to cook, to run the market, the store, and there's so much joy in the air, that just accentuates the hospitality.
It's going to be hard to go home tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll
tell you that.
Yeah, it is.
If I didn't have a wife waiting on me, I'd probably stay a while.
Yeah. But, I asked him that question, what's your secret? How do you get these folk working together so around a common goal? And this hospitality is just incredible from the time we called to make reservations to the time we'll leave. And he said, well, and pardon his language, but I'm going to use it. He said, well, we just don't keep assholes around here. And what he meant by that is, if somebody is not happy with themselves, and they want to bring others into that unhappiness. You know anybody like that? and so he said, we just don't keep those folk here. We can't afford it, because it really kind of poisons the rest. So he said, when the managers report, and we give them a few chances. He said, if they're not working out, we just say you need to move on, because we can't fix them. He said, we need them to move on somewhere else where they can fix themselves. I thought, wow, what a way to run a business. That's the secret behind all these folks, whether they're working in the processing plants with the chickens or the cows or the sheep, or whether they're operating the market or cooking the food, or they're taking care of the grounds, or all of these different jobs. We saw a beautiful garden today, and all the folks working in the garden, they all are a community together around a common good of really regenerating the earth, being good to the earth, and the earth's going to be good to us, and to also eat more healthy and raise animals in a more humane way. I mean,
real food.
You can't really beat that. We want to tell you that this is all leading up to a podcast we're going to do, Bucking the Parson. And, I've been talking a lot about be a good ancestor. And I've been wearing these green hats and giving these green hats all over. Be a good ancestor. We call this our bag of hat, because be a good ancestor in John Deere green and yellow. We hope they'll catch on. And we hope to be able to share those with those who will be viewing our podcast. And we expect to interview people like we've met here, and get them to tell their own story, and others really all over the country that we'll have as our guests. Buck, what are your dreams for podcast?
I had a long conversation at lunch today with a young man named Dale Caldwell, who is the executive director of the Center for Agricultural Resilience. And that is a nonprofit based here at White Oak, and they do training seminars, and they're looking at doing lots of things. We don't know where the next generation of farmers are coming from, because of how things have gone economically and culturally, etc. And Dale and his people who are working with him are training young people, also disabled veterans to come and train and be the next generation of farmers, because I'm a little concerned about where my grandchildren's food is going to come from. And so we've met wonderful people like that. And we have some surprise guests coming up on the podcast in 26. And Dale will be one of those, and I think you'll be very impressed with his ability to look at the situation and move ahead. in a really healthy way, much like what White Oak has done here.
That's right. And now Dale's not a surprise anymore.
No, sorry.
But that's okay too. We're excited, and we'll probably publish a list of folks that we're going to have in the future. But we're going to be starting this podcast soon. Not immediately, but soon. We're getting everything ready. We're going to get some of our shows or episodes done and ready to go. So when we start, we'll be able to come to you weekly. But we're going to talk about things that really concern us, interest us, and things that we believe that there's a lot of unity around, that we all need to be thinking about such things as this. And it's not just going to be about agriculture or the environment, but it's going to be in part about that. It's going to be about building community. It's going to be about relationships. It's going to be about all the things that make for good life. The things that we've committed ourselves to. Buck's been a teacher of fifth graders for how many years, Buck?
40
years.
Yep.
And for 42 years, I've been an ordained United Methodist pastor. Served my last church for into 28 years. So it was time to redirect. And part of that redirection, part of my next, is right here, talking about things that we believe matter and that make a difference. And so we'll be keeping you posted, but if you watch this, why don't you tell us if you'd be interested in seeing a podcast such as this, Buck and the Parson, with the theme, Be a Good Ancestor. Buck, you got anything else to say?
No, it's the charcoal's going. I'm about ready for some Iberico pork.
We're eating Iberico pork chops tonight, and also, what's the name of that sausage link that we're going to be
I wrote it down.
eating? Here's what you wrote.
It's Butafara.
Butafara,
Iberico Butafara sausage.
Yeah, and actually Heinz told us about Butafara. It's his favorite.
And Stan got the recipe.
Yeah, I got the recipe, but we also bought that very sausage right here in the market at White Oak Pastures. So we're going to sign off for now. It's time for us to cook supper and get to bed so we can be on the road for a 12-hour journey tomorrow. This is going to be our last episode on this trip, but we thank you for tuning in.